It's silent.
Okay, it'll be about 25, 30 seconds before anyone joins us.
All right. Oh, there we go.
And you can begin.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Teletown Hall meeting to talk about Question 3, the Education Initiative. My name is Nick DeArchangel. I'm the Nevada State Education Association Director of Communications. Here on the line with us tonight is NSEA President Ruben Murillo, and over about the next hour or so, we'll be taking your questions about the Education Initiative, Question 3. So if you would like to ask a question, please press 0 to put yourself into the queue. This is an interactive call. We want to hear from you. So to ask a question, press 0 to put yourself into the queue. But right now, I'd like to introduce the President of the Nevada State Education Association, Ruben Murillo. Ruben.
Hey, Nick. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Ruben Murillo, and I'm the President of NSEA. I'm a special ed teacher in the Clark County School District, and my full-time job is to represent you through NSEA. Nick, as you know, is our communications director, and what we want to do is we want to talk to you a little bit about the TEI, or the Education Initiative, and if you haven't voted, to answer any questions you have, to learn more about the initiative, and to also ask any questions that you may have gotten from negative information or inaccurate information that's out there. So just to go over what the Education Initiative is about, it was brought forward by NSEA because there has been a lack of commitment by state leaders to the education, through the governor, through the legislature, and the business community in terms of funding public education. As you know, $800 million has been cut from the school distributive account budget since the recession started. $800 million. $500 million alone in the Clark County School District. So NSEA put forward this petition with 150,000 signatures. Politicians have been hampered in terms of addressing a stable source of funding in the legislature by the two-thirds system, meaning that each branch of the legislature must pass any taxes with a two-thirds majority. Special interests like the Chamber of Commerce and retailers have fought any kind of tax, especially taxes that impact big box industries. So TEI was brought out of frustration, and the initiative petition was our only way to enact change. So the Education Initiative survived court challenges, and we recognize that initiatives have its strengths and limitations. We would prefer that the legislature enact laws that would address this issue, but since they haven't, the initiative process is the route that we chose to take. So some of the limitations on initiatives, we can't say it goes directly to public education or specific goals or areas or programs, because there's a single subject rule that means that it can only be written to do one thing: raise revenues. Politicians can't take it away or weaken it, and it's the way the people of Nevada get a voice in terms of how funding goes towards public education. So some of our opposition points, I'm sure you've been seeing a lot of the commercials that have been there, and you probably have a lot of questions based on that. So if you do have a question, please dial 0, and we will put you in the queue and answer your questions. But first, understanding the opposition, the Chamber of Commerce and retailers, the Review Journal, realtors are using the same language as they did in 2003 when a profits tax was proposed. And understand, businesses don't have responsibilities to our children in Nevada. Their responsibility is to shareholders, to big businesses, so they have a responsibility to fight for something that reduces profits, not that invests it in our economy. One of their points is that it doesn't go to schools, but there are two places where it says it goes. The money goes directly to the distributive school account. They say it in bold in the sample ballot, but also it says it in the initiative petition itself, which was written. Nick, what section is that in?
Well,
the initiative petition where it says that it goes directly to the DSA. It's on the front page.
So the great thing about the initiative is it says on the first page, first section, and it also says it in more detail on in section 19, subsection 4, that the tax revenue that's raised will go directly to the state distributive account and then to school districts. But why don't we take a question right here from a caller? Hold on one second here. And Mary, you're on the line. Can you hear us?
Yes.
What's your question?
My name is yeah, my question is, I'd like to know exactly for Proposition 3, where the money is really going to go. I know that it's like an umbrella, the charter schools as well as the public education that I work in, the monies will go under the same umbrella. Everybody wants it. How is that going to be looked at as far as giving the monies to public education?
Sure. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to put you on hold here for a second, and Ruben will answer that question. Hold on a second.
So, Mary, that's a good question. In the initiative petition, it states that all monies go to the DSA, the Distributive School Account. It's on the front page of the initiative petition, and it's in the sample ballot. Out of that money that goes to the DSA, then money is assigned per student and goes to each of the districts. And so if a child goes to a traditional public school or goes to a charter school, that money follows that child wherever they choose to attend school. So the money is dedicated to the DSA. It is dedicated to public schools. And in Nevada, a lot of charter schools are public schools also.
Yeah, and it actually specifically says that not only does it go to, it goes directly to fund public education K through 12, but in addition, charter schools. And I just want to remind everybody, I want to thank you all for joining us, and I want to remind you, if you have questions, press 0. It'll put you in the queue, and we'll do what we can to get to your questions, and so we can talk about this important issue. There's only a couple of days left for early voting. Early voting ends Friday, October 31st, and then and it's the most convenient way to vote, and it's the easiest way. So we really need everybody to be able to get out there. So let's take
Natalie is on there first.
Another question here. Let's see. Nettie, can you hear us?
Ruben. Yes, hi Ruben, how are you?
Good, Nettie, how are you? Good?
I'm good. I just got a couple questions. I work for Clark County School District. I'm a teacher assistant. Our wages have been frozen for wage increase. I've been with CCSD for going on 12 years. Is Question 3 going to help provide the teachers as well as support staff with like a raise?
Nettie, I think that what it can be used for, number one, if you're a teacher with the district, you just got a contract settlement that helped increase your salary, so that's a good start. But in terms of where the money's dedicated to, we can't say that it's going to go to wages or it's going to go to ELL. It'll go to the DSA, and then out of that, the money can be used for a variety of reasons. It could free up some additional monies that could be negotiated at the local level. And I know that one of the laws that was passed just in the last legislative session, or actually 2 sessions ago, was to mandate that districts work on an alternative compensation of pay-for-performance component to the contract. And so that'll be part of the negotiations. Any kind of additional money that goes into the DSA increases the pie that can be used for a wide variety of issues. Specifically, I think that a lot of this money will be going to programs where educators, teachers, and support staff are going to be mandated to work with full-day kindergartens or ELL students, and hopefully that'll also help to make working conditions better.
Okay, let's take another call here. We have, let's see, Mary. Can you hear us?
Yes, hi.
What's your question?
So I'm wondering how it is that the people that are opposing 3 are getting away with saying that the money, in fact, is not going into the distributive school account, because I've been hearing that a lot.
You know, this is one of those things where the people that are opposing it, they are doing everything they can and saying anything to see that it doesn't pass, right? And for me, as a communications director, It's been one of the, it's been one of those things where I find it kind of unbelievable because it's on page 15 of the sample ballot. It's in bold lettering that it says that it goes to fund schools directly. It's on the first page of the initiative. But they're banking, they're hoping that people won't try and get informed, won't read anything, and they'll get away with using their scare tactics. And these scare tactics are the exact same, the same messaging that they used in 2003 when a profit tax was proposed. They're saying it won't go to schools. They're saying it's going to hurt jobs. They're saying that businesses are going to be hurt or flee the state. They're running the same play because Nevada is one of 3 states where you don't have to pay taxes, and they want to keep it that way. So it's a really good question, and there aren't any rules or regulations that hold them to, unfortunately, to telling the truth. But that's why we're doing, it's one of the reasons why we're doing this call tonight and taking your questions. And I want to thank everybody. We've got a lot of people in the queue already, so please, if you have a question to ask about some of this messaging that you're seeing from the opposition and the things that they're saying, press 0. Dial in to ask a question, and we'll get you on board here. So, Mary, thanks a lot. Let's take
Linda. She's been there for a while.
Let's just talk to Linda here out of Carson City. Linda, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Thank you very much. My question is, I am a union member, been teaching since 1991. Not one time did the union ever ask me what my feelings as a union member were for this initiative. I will tell you I'm against the initiative. I am a business owner. Actually, I have several businesses here in Carson City, and I know that it will hurt our businesses. And I wouldn't be so opposed to it. I would be opposed, but I wouldn't feel I need to speak out at this if I at least would have one time somebody along the lines in the union would have asked what my feelings were.
Will you your businesses do you bring in more than $1 million a year?
Yes, that's pretty easy to do, to bring in $1 million, even a small business. Yes.
All right, and I'll let Ruben address the questions about the.
So, Linda, are you a member of the association in Carson City?
I am.
Okay, so Brian Wallace is the president of the Carson City union there, and I know that there have been conversations, at least at the local level, and I'm not sure how Brian gets the messages out, but it's been in the news, and if you're a member of the union at any time, you're always welcome to contact your either site representative or Brian. I know it's a small enough district where everybody knows each other to get that information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I know that Brian does a good job of that. But
he's fabulous. I don't have a problem with that. But my thing is not once did either.
Wait.
Are you there, Linda?
Oh, wait. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, good.
My rep in my building, or Brian, or the state, asked me, as a what is our feelings? You know, maybe they had those talks at board meetings. I just feel that as a member that's paying, that we should have all had at least an opportunity at some point, whether it be, an email saying, yes or no, do you support this?
Yeah. Well, Linda, I appreciate your comments, and the only thing I can tell you is that at our delegate assembly, where delegates from every local affiliate in the state are elected, they do participate in that. And sorry if you felt that the communication didn't go the way you liked for it to go, but we strongly encourage you, whether after this election process, that you become involved and ask questions, and we appreciate that.
Okay, let's take this message from Joan. Joan, are you there?
Are you speaking with me?
Yeah, is this Joan?
Yes, it is. I didn't hear my name. Sorry.
Hi. Thank you for joining us.
questions that are, I think, connected. One is, and you alluded to this, who will end up paying this tax? And also, I'd like to hear how it is going to be decided how the tax is paid, because I've heard lots of things on TV that seem very conflicting.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer this question. So the businesses that will pay this tax are only businesses that bring in more than $1 million. So any business that brings in under $1 million does not pay the tax. Then the way that the tax is structured, this is a margins tax. They take a look at all the money that they're bringing in, and then they have different deductions that can take based on the type of business that they are. So after they take those deductions, whatever's left, they pay 2% on that margin. And that's why this is called a margins tax. When it is not a profits tax. Profits taxes have proven to be unreliable in the states that have them for two important reasons. One, it's too volatile. Profits go up and down with the economy. And the second is that businesses do a great job, business accountants do a great job of hiding profits. There's too many loopholes when you solely tax profits. So this tax is modeled after a tax that's being used in Texas. It's very successful in Texas. It doesn't have the problems of a profits tax or a straight gross revenue tax, which is used in 2 states and it's very unpopular. So this one is kind of a compromise, but it still, in Texas, raises billions of dollars, and we expect in Nevada it will raise hundreds of millions, as much as $800 million a year, dedicated directly to public education. And I just want to remind everyone, thank you for being on the call this evening, and please, if you have a question, and there's lots of great questions being asked tonight, dial 0. It'll put you in the queue, and because we certainly want to hear from you. Let's take a look here now. From Tyrone, are you there?
Yeah, I have a question. The big thing to me is, number one, we have these municipalities. I don't know how much money they give the schools, like the city of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Summerlin, Henderson. We're not collecting any money from them. We're getting programs cut as far as athletics. We got kids that we can't even check books out to because we only got a classroom set. So how is this tax going to fix all of that? Or is it going to fix all of that?
Well, Tyrone, this is Ruben. What the tax will do will add dollars to the DSA, which can be used in many different ways, including some of the ways that you indicated. As I said earlier, $800 million has been cut from the state budget, and in Clark County alone, $500 million. And the numbers in Clark County are 4,000 more students this year than last year. They could build 25 elementary schools right now and still not meet the overcrowding that's going on. So, you know, when you have more students and a population that's growing and operating on the monies that are operating on a budget where monies have been cut, it impacts all across the board. So what this does is it brings in an estimated $800 million a year that could go to all of the services that you indicated. Now, a lot of them are going to be, what the legislature is saying, and the business community is saying, is they want the money targeted to certain areas, whether it's dealing with full-day kindergarten, classroom size reduction, addressing ELL students, special ed students. All of that is part of the game that needs to be discussed when it comes to how the money is allocated. So it could be, it depends on what is negotiated in your school district or what your school district determines are the priorities. They can't do anything unless there's any money in there. And right now, they're really struggling to provide at least a basic education to all students based on the economic growth that we're experiencing.
Tyrone, thanks a lot for that great question. And Richard, are you there? Can you hear us?
This is Richard again. Thank you. By the way,
yeah,
my wife is here tonight. I happened to pick up the phone, and it did not specify who could talk and who could not talk.
All right.
I happen to be a lender to small businesses in Nevada,
sure.
And I'm very concerned about this tax. A moment ago, you were talking about, you said, quote unquote, businesses that bring in over $1 million a year. I want to clarify that is gross revenue, and there are no expenses off of that, unless you could tell me what is allowed to be taken off of that then is taxed. For example,
Sure.
a business can gross revenue $1 million. Linda in Carson City said that it doesn't take much in today's business to have gross revenues of $1 million. Small businesses, and these are businesses owned by people that might employ 2 or 3 people, that might employ 20 people here in the state of Nevada. These are not large corporations sending their profits out of the state. These are people involved in our communities that are going to have to make hard decisions on whether or not they're going to continue to employ people because of this tax.
Sure. Let me.
Very difficult. The effective tax rate of this is a higher tax rate than California.
Well, that's
trying to bring in strong businesses to Nevada.
And that's,
diversify
so let me address those
economy.
questions. Let me address. So you've got the question about the deductions, and I want to address the gross revenue because it can't be both. It's either a gross revenue tax or it's a margins tax. This is not a gross revenue tax. It's a margins tax because there are sizable deductions that a company can take. There are 3 classifications of deductions. There's a flat deduction of 70%, and then you take the gross, then you take 70%, and then you take the 2%, and that's how you work the margin. If you're a goods-producing company, there are 21 different deductions, including cost of electricity to produce your goods, cost of spoilage, cost of research and development. So you deduct all of those deductions, and you take what's left, and it's 2% on that. And then finally, if you're not a goods producing and the flat doesn't work, you could take wages and benefits. And it's not just, it's wages, it's what a company would pay for health insurance, it's what a company would pay into a health savings account, it's a pension, all of those things. And so a company will sit down with their accountant and they will look at these 3 different deduction options and decide which one gives them the least tax liability. And this is a tax, like I said, it's modeled after a tax that's in Texas. When Texas introduced it, the threshold was much lower. It was $150,000 when it was first introduced, and they moved it up to the $1 million mark, and that's where ours is, and it's designed specifically so that this is a tax that's for the big businesses, the Walmarts, the box stores, and it certainly is not a tax that's designed to hurt any business. That's one of the reasons why there are so many deductions that are written into this initiative.
And so, Nick, isn't one of the deductions also depreciation?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of them, and also from what I understand, they can deduct it from their federal income tax, the tax that they pay.
Well, and that is one of the things that we found when we speak to accountants and we speak to people who do their taxes is they calculate out what their local liability will be, and then that number is applied to their federal taxes. And every business considers their entire tax liability, their entire tax package, and what they're going to owe. And both in practical experience and also studies that we've read show that local and state taxes don't have a burdensome impact on businesses.
And what about the modified business tax? What role does it play in the deduction?
Well, so if they pay modified business tax, that's another exemption. That's a big exemption, right? So if the initiative is located on the Secretary of State website, you can see all the deductions for yourself. The deductions are in sections 23, 25, and 26. It's something to really take a look at. We've yet to have someone who actually crunches the numbers, come back and say, okay, we've had very different examples. And I want to remind everybody, if you have questions about this, this is one of the most important issues, as you know, on the ballot. Everyone is talking about it. It's in all the newspapers. It's on TV. I'm sure you have questions, so please dial 0 to ask a question that you might have about how the tax will work, how it'll be applied, who will pay the tax, and those types of issues. Let's take a Margaret. Are you there? Are you still on the line?
Yes.
What's your question?
We have been told so many years that a lot of these taxes are actually going to get to the school, of which a big chunk, like 85% of the time, a lot of it doesn't get back there. How are we, as both parents and teachers and faculty members for the school district, how are we going to be actually know that for 100% of the time all of this is actually going to get there?
So, Margaret, this is Ruben. That's a very good question. In the front of the initiative petition and in the sample ballot, it states that it will go into the DSA, the distributive school account. There's no argument as to where it's going to go, even though you're going to hear opposition that says it doesn't. Our challenge is to make sure that the money stays in the DSA, and we all have to work together as educators, parents, and community members to make sure that that funding stays in the DSA. Now, one of the things about this initiative petition is that it has brought to the forefront that everybody recognizes that funding is crucial and it needs to be addressed. From the business community to the legislators, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or Independent, have all agreed that funding is necessary. So if this passes, it puts it directly into the DSA, and we're going to make sure that those politicians, those legislators, keep it in the DSA. Once in the DSA, it's distributed to the local school districts, and then at the local level, we have to work with our local associations to make sure that that money stays where it was earmarked to go to. So that's one of our big challenges.
Yeah, let's, and Kelly has a similar, I think, let's get her on here. Kelly, are you there?
Yes. I have a question in that I've lived in other states where they'll introduce a way of providing funding for education, say, for example, a lottery, and they say that all of the money raised will go then to education. But what they don't tell us is that they're then going to take all the funding we used to get away and use that in other places. How do we know that that won't happen here?
Well, that's a great question. That's certainly something that's been raised. And one of the things that I want to, I just want to read this part here, and it's actually in the initiative, and it talks about all this revenue, the taxes, the interest, all of this stuff will be just deposited into the state distributive school account. This is the school fund, right? Then it says specifically, the money so deposited must be apportioned among the several school districts of the state at the times and in the manner provided by law. So there's the part in this initiative that says this money is going to go into the schools, and this is what it's dedicated for, and this is why this initiative was written. But something that that is also contained in this initiative is it's a 3-year guarantee. This initiative, it's not like when politicians bring this forward or when it's brought forward in a legislative session. It can't be tinkered with. It can't be manipulated. This is an initiative that was brought forward by people, and once it's voted on, the language that's in it is set, and there's language in it that says that this thing needs to be given a chance for 3 years, and make sure that it works. So, and then even after the 3 years, nothing in the language changes. It continues to be a process where big businesses are taxed, and that revenue directly goes to education. One of the questions that we hear, and again, I'll remind everybody, please dial 0. We're getting great questions here, and we want to keep this conversation going because it's that important. People are saying, well, we want to make sure that it keeps going to programs, and we want to make sure that it goes to reducing class size, and that's the intent of all this money that's going to be raised. Well, that's the way it's written, and it's the biggest part of the budget. And Ruben, you know more about that than anybody.
Well, I think that one of the big things that you were alluding to, Kelly, is how do we make sure they don't back the money out? And so the money that comes in will stay in, and that's up to us to make sure that the money that is dedicated to the DSA isn't backed out. Now, the community and the governor and the legislature at the last session kind of mapped out a plan for how for how to meet our students' diverse needs in the state. See a classroom size reduction, full-day kindergarten, early childhood, special ed, and ELL. We've identified professional development for educators, teachers, and support staff, and school reforms that would assist teachers in the classroom and support staff such as peer assistance and review and mentoring. And how do we keep teachers here from leaving? Because after the first 5 years, 50% of our teachers leave the profession. So there's a roadmap to how to get to a better education system, but the funding isn't there. Mm-hmm. And so we need to make sure that the community, which has said that they recognize that funding is a necessity, follows this roadmap and funds our schools. I'm going to just give you a quick example. We have 17 Zoom schools in our state. We have a neighborhood near UNLV where there are 3 schools with very similar demographics in terms of free and reduced lunch, ELL, and the population there. 2 out of the 3 schools got extra monies for Zoom schools. The other one didn't. Who makes that decision, and how do we, with clear consciousness, tell the parents, I'm sorry, these kids get extra funds, yours don't. We have demonstrated the need. Now we need to make sure that we hold those accountable to fund those programs that are being successful.
Kelly, thanks a lot for the question. Let's bring Hans on board here because and I want to thank everybody who's been holding. We'll get to your questions as quickly as you can, and for those that want to ask questions, press 0. Hans, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. What's your question?
Yes. Well, actually, I didn't. You've already answered my question, and I was kind of on the fence with this initiative. But what I want to know is, once the funds go into this DSA account, who determines, who specifically determines where the funds will go? Like you mentioned, like one school may get funds, another school may not. Who determines exactly where these funds are going to go? And then just secondly, I want to make a comment. This is a really good comment, and you guys are putting on different views about this, and I think I'm going to vote approval on this initiative.
Well,
thanks, Hans.
Yeah, hey, Hans, thank you very much. How this happens is that the legislature is the one that determines what the funding is like. They may say that we're going to allocate $55 million towards the Zoom schools, and they're going to fund 14 across the state. And they'll come up with a formula where Clark County gets 14 or 15, and Washoe gets 2, and the rural parts of the states get 1 or 2 schools. And that's how they would address that issue. But the remainder of the money goes to each local school district. The legislature may recommend or mandate, for example, like they did with full-day kindergarten, that classroom size reduction, that every school district will have classroom size reduction for kindergartners capped at 25, which they did. Then it's up to each of the local school districts to use the money that's been allocated to them through the DSA to either come up with those funds or find additional ways to augment their budget. So the legislature sets the parameters. The districts then use that money to fund full-day classroom size reduction if it's mandated, and if not, to other programs that are identified, locally.
And Hans, I just want to add something. I was at a meeting this weekend with our education support professionals, and they were talking with an assistant superintendent who was talking about the needs in schools. And I learned something. I didn't realize, at least in southern Nevada, that elementary schools only have 1 custodian. And the custodian was talking about how difficult it is to sanitize, wipe down 48 tables in 20 minutes, especially if she gets a call to run out to the playground to clean up broken glass, or there was a spill in a classroom, because those are priority, and so everything starts to get backed up. And the assistant superintendent said, we know that there's not enough custodians in schools. We know there's not enough groundskeepers and other needs, but the funding just doesn't exist. So we've maintained all along that administrators and schools and districts, they know where the money needs to go, but there just isn't enough that comes in. So they have to make hard decisions, and some of our members will argue that they make bad decisions, but they're making decisions based on crumbs. And we finally have an opportunity here to put a huge amount of dedicated, predictable revenue. And that's the key right there. It's dedicated, predictable revenue that has never happened before in this state to education. And once that money comes in, as I like to say, all boats will rise. It will be, spread out to where everyone will, they know where the need is, and it'll be addressed. Don't forget, everybody, dial 0 to join us here. Hans, I want to thank you for for your question, and dial 0 to participate in this call, in this process. This is about question 3. It's one of the more money's been spent on this by the opposition than any initiative question ever in the history of the state. This is something that is really important, and we only have a couple of days left of early voting. Let's, Deborah, are you on the line? Hi, Deborah, are you there?
Because I forgot to put postage on them.
Deborah?
So we have a question from Deborah, and it says, will the tax be passed along to consumers even with deduction? I'm a school employee, and
so this is a concern that we've heard. This is something that the opposition has been very vocal about, talking about will this be passed on to the consumer? And look, this is on their list. This is on their list of scare tactics, which include everything from hurting businesses and killing jobs. Their last tactic is, well, it's just going to get passed on to you. Nevada is one of 3 states that doesn't ask businesses to pay their fair share. Businesses in the state and 2 other states do not pay a tax on revenue, tax on income. They just don't. They pay 0. They don't want to pay a penny in taxes, but they need to. They need to. Everybody has to be held accountable for student success. So to not have to pay, they will use every scare tactic they can. In every other state that has some sort of tax on businesses, it doesn't get passed on to consumers. It's if you were to take John Ralston did a fantastic side-by-side comparison of what basic goods, milk, things like that, cost in a supermarket chain in California, and what they cost here. And he showed that the cost to consumer is exactly the same. Well, why is that? If businesses aren't paying any taxes here, wouldn't and shouldn't they be passing that savings on to us? So the idea that this tax would be initiated, this 2% on the margin after deductions, which only a sliver of businesses will pay. 13% of businesses in Nevada will actually pay this tax. It will be the largest corporations, the ones who ship the money out of state. The impact won't be felt on consumers.
So just real quick, as a public school teacher, I worked 2 jobs most of my life, and I worked at Macy's for 23 years. And the same shirt that they sell at Macy's in California is the same price in Macy's Las Vegas, Macy's Albuquerque. It's the same amount. It's all in the profit. So just keep that in mind too.
And they're obviously the opposition out there. They have they're spending millions and millions of dollars, and they're pushing a lot of different messages. One of the messages that we've seen come out along the consumer line is how will it affect healthcare, and they humorously use a CEO from an extremely profitable hospital chain that has been fined hundreds of millions of dollars for Medicaid fraud. Again, this is a strategy that they're using, but the fact of the matter is that we know that classrooms are overcrowded. We know that there are programs that work that can't be paid for. We know that the custodians out in Nye County have to fight for floor wax because there isn't enough money, and they're being told to water down the floor wax. And what does that penny pinching and that short-sighted crisis budgeting, what does that do to that school in the long term when it's crumbling and then there's even less money to try and put in a new floor or provide a safe, warm, and comfortable environment for children to learn? That's what question 3 is all about. Question 3 is about making sure the money is there and addressing these needs, and so that our kids have a chance to succeed.
I also want to talk to you as a fellow educator, and please dial 0 to ask a question or to make a comment. We really want to hear from you. But as educators in the classroom, on the front lines, we know what the budget cuts have done to us in terms of being able to provide a quality education? How many of you spend money out of your own pockets to augment the materials that you need to do your job? How many of you are lacking the professional development to work on the implementation of Common Core, Infinite Campus, the HR department's mandates that you follow? Every day you experience what the lack of funding in public education does to our children in the classroom. So when anybody asks you, what would this money go for? You've brought up great examples, but just use your story and think about what you have to go through on your everyday activities as to how this money could help you. How many of you are in classrooms where you don't have enough materials, enough chairs? We hear of classrooms where biology or lab classes have 40, 50 students, and how can they get a quality individualized education? And you hear from people who blame teachers and support staff members for everything that's to blame about public education. Well, if they gave us the tools and the materials to do our job, and they gave us the compensation or the working conditions to stay here, we wouldn't have 50% of our teachers leaving after the first 5 years, and we wouldn't have a mass rush of teachers and support staff to retire. You know, that's a problem that's not caused because people are wanting to leave on their own. It's because they're being forced out. It's because they're being forced to make decisions based on factors that are beyond their control.
You know, Ruben, you mentioned Zoom schools earlier. One of the things that came up in the conversation with education support professionals over the weekend, a custodian mentioned that their school was a Zoom school. It was open extended hours. And so what that ended up doing was, it was great. It was very positive because children now have this program where there's expanded time and they get extra time to learn. But the custodians, because they're so short-staffed, they don't have the time to go through the classrooms and clean up the school because those classrooms are being used. So, you know, the programs that we know work, right? Programs even of accountability, programs where that they talk about, even the opposition talks about. These programs cost money, and then there are indirect consequences that these programs create that cost money to do things right. And when there's only a small, you know, crumbs of the pie that are left, they have to make these really terrible decisions sometimes about who gets and who doesn't get. You know, so I just want to remind everybody that's on the call tonight, thank you for joining us. And you can certainly ask questions. This is meant to be interactive.
So they want to dial 0 to ask a question?
You just have to dial 0 to get yourself in the queue. And you know, one thing I'd like to talk about is how the initiative is structured. And we know that the money will go directly to education. But this initiative was written so that it's not an unfunded mandate. It's written so that it's paid for, that it's the process of how it works and how the Department of Taxation will implement it is all spelled out in the initiative. It was really carefully crafted. It was an initiative that withstood a Supreme Court challenge, a state Supreme Court challenge, and was moved forward and put on the ballot. There's a reason why this initiative is on the ballot, and it's because there's been a failure to address this problem and come up with a solution. And to date, and right up until Election Day, there's yet to be a viable solution to providing dedicated, predictable funding to education. So this is again, I'd like to invite anybody to dial 0. Curious to hear what you heard. What have you heard out there? What information do you have about things that have been that people are talking about?
So, you know, one of the things, until we get a question, Nick, is I want to say that what this has done, TEI, is brought to the forefront the issue that funding is lacking in Nevada. The business community, community leaders, the legislators, Republican and Democrats have indicated that they recognize that this is an issue. And so nobody came up with a plan. So our plan was, hey, you know, we're going to put this initiative on the ballot, and a lack of anybody else coming up with a substitute, this is what it is. And so we're looking forward to working with business leaders, with legislators, with community stakeholders, parents, and school districts to say, okay, here are our needs as educators, as a community. Where are you going to find the money to do so? And we believe that TEI would help to provide resources for those programs that have been identified by the districts, legislators, community members, and also by educators.
You know, let's take a poll while we have people on the line, and the poll's pretty straightforward. Will you vote yes for the education initiative? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, press 3 for undecided. So will you vote yes for the education initiative? 1 for yes, 2 for no, or 3 for undecided? Let's see what we get here. And yeah, this is this initiative was put on the ballot. It's been 2 years. We had a question earlier about membership interest and participation and comments, and this is the type of thing where we've been talking about it. We've been mailing our members about it. We've been trying to inform as many as possible. We know that the opposition is. I thought there were some great questions about what the opposition is saying and how they're allowed to get away with what they're saying. And unfortunately, this is the nature of politics, and they will do anything they can to put this out there to try and not have to pay. If we're one of 3 states where businesses aren't taxed on revenue, and they are going to struggle and fight to keep that. People ask, well, if this tax is implemented, won't it keep businesses away? Well, we've had a 0% tax. It's been at 0 for decades, and we are still a one-industry economy, and that has to change. Studies in the state from as far back as 2000 say unless we broaden our tax base, unless we create a broad-based business tax and start to invest in our infrastructure, and especially education, we'll never broaden out our economic base. We'll never attract the type of industries which will help us not only grow and prosper, but also weather the impact of a deep recession, because we're so reliant on one industry.
And, it's amazing that a lot of the businesses that are coming in with huge tax breaks. So if these companies are coming in with huge tax breaks like Tesla, then what's going to be the source of funding in terms of infrastructure for areas where they're coming in? Story County, Washoe County, Lyon County up in northern Nevada, they've got to supply the schools, the teachers, the materials in order for these companies to come in. And if they're not paying taxes, then where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from you and me. I was on a KMPR speaking on the radio about TEI, and a member of the realtor community, representative of the community, said, you know what, you don't have to, we can't pay these taxes. He insinuated that you should have taxes that everybody else pays, meaning you and I, through taxes that impact us directly instead of those companies. So we need to find a way to fund our schools. We're growing, and it's just an issue that has to be addressed. I want to thank you very much for coming on and listening to us, especially tonight with the World Series going on. Go Royals. And we want to remind you to please vote early. We want to remind you that please vote yes on 3, but it's really important for you to go all the way down the line on the ballot. You have to go through all the legislative races and then those wonderful judicial races that, are always there. But on the bottom is question 3. We would like for you to vote yes on 3, and personally I'd like for you to vote yes on 2, because yes on 2 would also allow us to look at how to get additional revenue or taxes from the mining industry, because a lot of those corporations send their profits out of state. As I told you, I worked at Macy's for 23 years, and all their profits went to Macy's, California. So nothing really stayed here except for a minimal amount. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Vote early. You have up until Friday. If not, please make sure you vote on Tuesday, November 4th. And then again, vote yes on 3, please.
Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.